Hello friends, my name is Emile and welcome back to some more Forza Horizon 3 and welcome to the 2016 Honda Civic Type-R. This is a car I've wanted in Forza for a very long time indeed. It is already, despite only being out for about a year or so, one of my favourite hot hatches of all time. I love the absolute lunacy of this thing. And, well, what sort of lunacy am I talking about? Well, let me let you into it. It has, as we scroll over here, 306 horsepower, which is quite a lot, and 295 foot-pound of torque, all going through the front wheels. Now, in my personal opinion, all hot hatches to be considered proper hot hatches should have just front-wheel drive. They shouldn't have four-wheel drive. I mean, for some cars I don't mind it, like the Focus RS, but for me, a proper hot hatch is a front-wheel drive one, and yeah, I've sort of got a sneaking suspicion, and it is a bit saddening that this particular Civic Type-R might be the last of the truly insane hot hatches that have front-wheel drive. It also looks absolutely fantastic. So, now that we've got this car in the game, I figured, similar to what I did with the Koenigsegg 1-to-1, I'd actually take this thing for a bit of a test drive. I haven't driven it much at all yet. What I did is, you may notice I'm in the same place that I took the thumbnail for the DLC video. I've literally driven it into this car park in third gear so I don't spoil it for myself, essentially. So, I guess, as the driver tells are having a bit of a sad there, we should go and take this thing for a bit of a test drive. And I'm going to be starting with a bit of an interesting test. There is a reason why we're starting in Byron Bay here, and that's because it has a roundabout here. Now, I'm going to be using this roundabout to kind of try and gauge this car's understeer. Now, they say they've got a bunch of electronic gubbins in order to prevent understeer in this vehicle, but, of course, as we know, putting so much power through the front wheels does result in understeer. So, shall we see if Honda has succeeded or not? Right, let's get ourselves onto the roundabout, pick up some pace. Alright, we're in second gear. I'm flooring it. Ooh, there's a bit of understeer. A bit of smoke, bit of understeer. That's... I've driven worse, but we really need to get this thing onto some roads to really get into this. Right, bit of an acceleration test. Here we go. It is quick. Oh my god, it is pretty darn quick for a hot hatch, in fact. That's pretty darn insane. Right, our first corner goes through there pretty nicely. Another roundabout, we'll take a third exit here. Oh, maybe we won't, because there's no third exit on this roundabout, god damn it. Yeah, I mean, through sort of lower speed corners, it does feel a little bit understeery, but as far as just ragging it around town in general, it seems to be pretty good. I'm just going to drive around this town, do a bit of town blasting. There we go. Yeah, there's definitely some understeer there, and the diff, it's not completely solving all issues. But, that being said, it is not terrible. I have driven much worse hot hatches than this for this sort of handling characteristics, you know. The cars that spring to mind, Acura RSX, the Vauxhall Astra, you know, those vehicles did struggle for understeer. This, again, it does for a certain extent, but I mean, look at that. That was 95 miles per hour, and I'm taking, you know, I'm not letting off the throttle here. I'm taking these corners relatively flat out. That's actually really impressive there. It does go a little bit wide at the end, but that was pretty darn impressive. And I've got to say, acceleration is impressing me. This, Yaris has gone into a tree there. This driving position is also impressing me greatly. I can see a lot out of the cockpit mode, which is a bit of an issue on Horizon 3. You know, some cars do feel a bit constrained in the cockpit mode, but here, you know, it seems to be pretty well. Bit of a blind spot on the A-pillar, but nothing major there. Right, now, time to test something which is completely impractical for a Forza game, but we'll test it anyways. Right, let's get up to motorway speeds, which is 70 miles per hour, and 6 gears are highest, and what do we idle at? We idle about 2.5, that's pretty decent. Wanted to increase that to 80 miles an hour, we idle at 3,000 RPM. Okay, that's pretty decent. That means that this vehicle should be a fairly competitive motorway cruiser. As far as overtaking stuff, right, fourth gear, 50 miles an hour. How long do we take to get to 70? Of course, we've got a turbo on this, not just VTEC. Yeah, that's not too bad. You got to remember, with this vehicle, is it's not naturally aspirated anymore. Civic Type-Rs are previous, were all naturally aspirated. This one has got a turbocharger on it. That being said, you don't really seem to be able to feel the lag all that much, which is good. Again, modern turbocharging is very, very good indeed. Let's see how much fun it is to drive on some coastal roads. We'll head up to Surfers Paradise here, and then we'll do a bit more of town driving, because that's sort of where this car is meant to be. It is pretty quick though, 145 miles per hour without really breaking much of a sweat. A little bit of understeer. I mean, there's more understeer in here than, say, a Subaru BRZ, but this is much quicker than a BRZ. You can see more out of it than a BRZ, and ultimately it is more practical. Compared to the four-wheel drive hot hatches, yeah, Focus RS will handle better, but this thing is a hell of a lot cheaper than Focus RS. I believe these start about 28 grand, 28,000 credits, which is not a lot. She does grip nicely. It really does feel like there's a lot of grip in this car, especially at high speeds, which I was not expecting from the Civic Type-R. Yeah, again, there is understeer. There's no doubting there's understeer in this vehicle. But, I'll tell you what, it is fairly impressive at dealing with that, especially at speeds. You know, most horrible hot hatches, you know, would go off into the trees here, but, you know, I have some very snappy steering, similar to what was in the 2007 Civic. It isn't quite as snappy as what was in that vehicle, but it's still pretty good. I mean, it cruises at about 150. That's when it starts struggling on the top speed. But, yeah, it seems to be pretty darn flawless other than that. I'm really liking this car and the way it's driving, if I'm being honest. Right, we've got another roundabout. Let's not put any power on. Yeah, it's got on-power understeer. That is... There's no doubt there is definitely on-power understeer in this vehicle, but, you know, in pretty much every single front-wheel drive car I've driven, there's on-power understeer. I mean, hell, the fantastic... you see, I didn't really have enough room to overtake there. That was pretty terrible of me. Luckily we're fine. We'll do some third-person view for a little bit as well. It looks absolutely amazing. I love the way this thing looks with the spoiler and everything. But yeah, even cars like the Abarth 695 by Posto, you know, they do have on-power understeer. But as far as, like, off-power is concerned, I mean, let's just... There we go. Be a bit careful with it. Yeah, it does handle pretty solid. I do have to say, I'm really very, very impressed indeed with the way this thing is driving. It is, again, it's surprisingly quick as well. I wasn't, you know, I knew this vehicle can do, I believe it's about 170-ish miles an hour all in, but I was not expecting it to be, you know, getting to about 150 before struggling. Hell, even in 5th gear, I mean, look at that. Through the tunnel, what's it sound like? It isn't the best sounding car in the world, obviously. It is a 2-litre with turbocharger. You know, it's a 4-banger, what do you want? But still. Alright, now time to see about the other thing hot hatches do well. How much fun are we with a handbrake? Ooh, okay, we do have a lot more... Okay, that was maybe... I'm not sure if that was the car's fault or my fault. We do not feel particularly good on the handbrake so far, though. Ooh, and now we sort of do... Yeah, that's nice. That is nice. It certainly hasn't... The Civic's really sort of grown up in size and everything, but the fun is still there in this little car, man. It really is. Lovely jubbly. Oh man, this is fun. This is really very, very fun car to drive. Maybe not quite as fun as, say, a Mark 1 Golf GTI, but nothing in modern terms will be as fun as a Mark 1 Golf GTI. This thing is pretty darn incredible. I do have to say that. We will go right here, I think. Oh wait, no, we'll go left. See how well we are with this. Power on. Beautiful. Yeah, this is a solid, solid vehicle to drive. It really is. It's not just impressive from a front-wheel drive hot hatch terms, it's impressive just in general as a performance car. Which really, you know, as far as good performance cars that are front-wheel drive, there isn't many of them. There really isn't many of them. You know, hot hatches, you sort of have to compare them to each other. This does seem like you can genuinely call it a sports car. Off the line, we do get a lot of wheel spin, but, I mean, you know, granted, the one thing with the Civic Type-R, unlike, say, a Focus R... Well, actually, I guess a Focus RS. Unlike, say, an A45 AMG or a Golf R, you know, this isn't meant, or even the Golf GTI Club Sport, come to think of it. You know, those cars are set up purely to dominate lap times. The Civic Type-R is supposed to be a little bit more immature. That's why it has, you know, that big spoiler and these wide fenders and all the rest of it. It's pretty impressive. Right, highway run. Just how much speed can we get out of this vehicle? Also, again, visibility in the cabin is absolutely amazing. I've got a bunch of easy to read gauges here. The speedo is in kilometers, which is a little bit disorientating. I'm assuming this might be a Japanese spec car, perhaps. Yeah, it is a little bit disorientating. We are coming into nighttime now. Nighttime visibility seems to be pretty good. Glad trying to switch lanes on me there. Alright, we're starting to get to the big meat and potatoes of the speed run, so let's do this. We're in 5th gear, 147, 148, 150, 155, 56, 57, change gear. 160 in the Honda, 160 miles an hour in the Civic. This shouldn't really be possible. 162, 163. If we can get to 170, I will be very, very happy indeed. Does look like we're cruising at 163 though. That 6th gear does seem to just be that little bit too long, and 5th gear seems to be just a tiny bit too short. 6 doesn't really act as an overdrive, unfortunately, which it would be much better to do so in this capacity. 167, 68. I mean, admittedly, that's from downhill sections. Sort of in cruising sections, though, it does seem to do about 166, just from general cruising, but we've got a few more dashes to go, try and cut through the traffic here. And again, it does seem to be doing it flawlessly, you know, the steering is very, very direct, which is good, of course, for this sort of thing. You do want direct steering. 167, 68, 69, 170, there we go. Can we get anything more than that? 171, 171, and it looks like traffic is just going to be a little bit too much at the end of the motorway there. That's impressive. 171 stock. I should point out, yeah, this car is completely stock. That is pretty incredible. Right. Well, I wasn't just bringing it out into the outback for no reason at all. I guess we better go find out what the off-road capabilities of the Civic Type-R are like. Of course, it's got super hard suspension, so it probably shouldn't be too great at this, but still. And it's running stock tyres. Does seem to deal with the dirt pretty well, though. And I need to really find some more sort of off-roady trails, which I do believe if we head up this way we can find those. So let's just re-enter the road and then we'll get on another one of those trails. But yeah, I'm super impressed so far. You know, disappointing stuff, I guess it doesn't handle quite as amazingly well as I was somewhat hoping for it to. You know, it doesn't quite... It doesn't quite deal with the understeer amazingly well. There's definitely some on-power understeer still, and there's no getting around from that, but at the same time, you know, 306 horsepower is an awful lot to put for those front wheels, and Honda's done a pretty good job of controlling it. Right, let's go into another dirt trail and see how well we can do here. Controller's vibrating like mad. That rock-hard suspension certainly is not made for this, but it does seem to be pretty taut on these off-roady sections. Unfortunately, it is nighttime, so I can't really see all that well, although I guess we can see how well it's suited to rally driving here. Ooh, Yeah, it does seem to handle, and I'm pretty terrible at rally driving, by the way, in case you can't tell. It does seem to be pretty good at dealing with dirt. It's not understeering anymore than it did on sorts of normal land. Here, it does handle it pretty darn well, by the looks of it. Again, it's got a really nice gearbox. Ooh, we sort of go off. Should have been really looking at where the dirt trail goes. Really good gearbox. Super snappy. Goes into any gear we need it to. Just cut that a little bit of a thing. Yeah, there's a bit of low speed understeer. There's no getting away from that. But yeah, this gearbox is pretty close ratio, pretty nice. I would honestly prefer if fifth gear was a little bit more dragged out, just so we could sort of do a bit more of top speed runs with it, but there we go. Back onto the road, we'll do another acceleration test. Yep, gearbox is really well set up for this class of car. You know, I've got no issues with it. The gearbox isn't too long, it isn't too short. Except for maybe that 5th and 6th gear, but that's just sort of a minor complaint of mine. Other than that, though, we are pretty darn solid indeed. I am very impressed. I am a very, very happy man. I am happy that I waited all those many, many months to finally get a chance at experiencing the Civic Type-R. So overall, good visibility, good hot hatch, has very good handling. It's a fun car to drive, certainly, if nothing else. You know, ultimately, it's not the quickest car on the market, sort of, in terms of hot hatches. You know, if you want the ultimate hot hatch, you're buying the Ford Focus RS or you're buying an A45 AMG. You know, this doesn't really fit into that contingent all that well, but then again, this is a hell of a lot cheaper than those cars, and this is a hell of a lot more fun. Granted, you know, Focus RS can be very much a fun car, but I would argue that this is even more fun than both of those vehicles. So yeah, I am highly, highly impressed with the Civic Type-R. I do suggest you go and give it a drive if you haven't already, and tell me what you think of it down below in the comment section. But anyways, that is it for my drive of the Honda Civic Type-R. I do hope you've enjoyed. Thank you all very much for watching, friends. Mine has been the real Emile. Till next time, farewell.